The alarm screamed through the monitoring station at Kepler 442 like a wounded animal. Lieutenant Kara Vex jumped from her chair and stared at the readings on her screen. The numbers made no sense. Something massive was coming through the outer system, moving at impossible speeds for something so large. "Commander Zethka to the bridge immediately," she called through the comm system. Her voice shook despite her years of training. In 15 years of monitoring deep space, she had never seen anything like this. The station orbited a dead planet on the edge of known space. Its job was simple: watch for threats coming from the dark void beyond civilization. Most days brought nothing but cosmic dust and the occasional asteroid. Today was different. Commander Zethka arrived within minutes, his blue-scaled skin rippling with concern. The Altarian officer had commanded this station for 30 years. He had seen enemy fleets, rogue planets, and even a black hole once. But the massive shape on the long-range scanners made his blood run cold. "How long until it reaches the inner system?" he asked, his voice steady despite the fear growing in his chest. 6 hours at current speed, Kara replied. "But sir, look at these readings. The hull composition is ancient. This ship is older than our oldest records." Zethka studied the data flowing across multiple screens. The vessel stretched nearly 50 kilometers from bow to stern. Its hull showed signs of countless repairs, patches of different metals welded together over what must have been thousands of years. Cosmic radiation damage scarred every surface, telling the story of an impossible journey through the deepest parts of space. "Run a full spectral analysis," he ordered. "I want to know everything about this ship before it gets any closer." The results came back within an hour. Zethka stared at the report with growing disbelief. The metal signatures matched records from the Forbidden Archives, files that were sealed for good reason. This ship belonged to a species that had been extinct for 20,000 years. "Humans," he whispered. The word felt strange in his mouth. Most beings in the galaxy knew the story of Earth's children. They had appeared suddenly in galactic history, spreading across dozens of worlds with remarkable speed. Then, just as quickly as they had risen, they vanished. Their homeworld went silent. Their colonies abandoned. Every human settlement found empty, as if the entire species had simply walked away from existence. That was 20,000 years ago. The Galactic Council had declared humanity extinct after 1,000 years of silence. Their worlds were quarantined, their technology studied and filed away. Most species preferred to forget that humans had ever existed at all. Now one of their ships was coming home. "Send an immediate alert to Galactic Command," Zethka ordered. "Priority Alpha. Tell them we have a human vessel approaching the core systems." While Kara worked on the transmission, Zethka activated the deep space scanners. The ship was definitely human in design, but something was wrong with it. The energy readings showed systems that shouldn't exist. The hull dimensions didn't match the internal space readings. It was as if the ship was bigger inside than outside, which violated every law of physics he knew. The transmission equipment crackled to life. Static filled the bridge, then cleared to reveal a familiar face on the main screen. "This is Admiral Chen aboard the GSV Harmony," came the voice. "We received your alert. Confirm you have visual contact with a human vessel." Zethka nodded. "Confirmed. The ship matches archival records for Earth's deep space exploration vessels. Designation appears to be U.S. Endurance." A long pause followed. Admiral Chen's expression grew grave. The Endurance was humanity's last known vessel. It departed Earth carrying their greatest scientists and leaders just before the planet fell silent. "We assumed it was destroyed long ago." "The ship appears to be in working condition," Kara reported from her station. "I'm reading active power systems, life support, even what looks like a functioning navigation array." "Any response to our hails?" Admiral Chen asked. Zethka shook his head. "We've tried all standard frequencies. The ship maintains course and speed toward the inner system. No acknowledgement of our presence." The Endurance continued its silent journey past the monitoring station. Up close, Zethka could see the true extent of damage and repair covering its hull. Entire sections had been rebuilt with materials that didn't match Earth's original construction. The ship looked like it had fought a war lasting thousands of years. "Wait," Kara called out suddenly. "I'm picking up a transmission. Very weak, broadcasting on multiple frequencies." She routed the signal through the main speakers. Static filled the bridge, then resolved into something that made every officer present freeze in shock. A human voice, speaking in the ancient Earth languages that scholars studied in universities. The words were simple, repeated over and over in different tongues. The children are coming home. The children are coming home. Admiral Chen's face went pale. How many life signs are you reading aboard that vessel? Kara checked her instruments twice before answering. That's impossible, sir. The scanners show millions of life signs, but they're not normal readings. The signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Millions. Zethka repeated. That ship couldn't hold millions of beings even if they were packed like cargo. The Endurance passed their position and continued toward the heart of galactic civilization. Its message continued broadcasting, the same words repeating endlessly across every frequency. The children are coming home. 3 hours later, Jake Morrison received the emergency communication aboard his patrol ship near the Vega system. As the only human serving in the galactic fleet, he was often called upon when situations involved his extinct species. Usually it meant investigating abandoned human ruins or translating old Earth languages for historians. This time was different. Jake read the report 3 times before the reality sank in. A human ship, alive and functional, heading toward the core worlds. The vessel that had carried Earth's last hope into the void 20,000 years ago had returned. His hands shook as he set course for the rendezvous point. Jake had grown up believing he was alone in the universe, the last of his kind raised by adoptive alien parents. The discovery of other human ruins had given him hope that somewhere, somehow, his people might have survived. Now that hope might become reality. The Endurance continued its journey, broadcasting its message to any who would listen. Behind it, ships from across the galaxy changed course to intercept. Scientists, military vessels, and curious observers all raced to witness the impossible return of humanity's ghost ship. None of them knew what they would find aboard the ancient vessel. None of them suspected that the Endurance carried more than just survivors from Earth's final days. It carried the souls of an entire species, preserved across 20 millennia of wandering through the darkest reaches of space. The children were indeed coming home, but home was no longer a single world. Home had become something far greater than anyone in the galaxy could imagine. The research vessel Harmony matched course with the Endurance 12 hours later. Dr. Elena Rodriguez pressed her face against the observation window and gasped at what she saw. The human ship was even more massive than the scans had indicated. Its hull stretched beyond her field of vision, a patchwork of repairs and additions that told the story of countless years wandering through space. Jake Morrison stood beside her, his human eyes taking in details that the alien crew members missed. He could see Earth construction methods in the original framework, but also technologies that humanity had never possessed when they left their homeworld. Someone had been improving the ship for a very long time. "Docking bay is opening," announced Captain Torres from the bridge. The massive doors in the Endurance's side slid apart with surprising smoothness for such ancient machinery. No rust or corrosion marked the metal surfaces. Whatever power source kept this ship running had maintained it perfectly across 20,000 years. Elena checked her equipment one final time. As the Galactic Council's chief xenoarchaeologist, she had explored the ruins of dozens of extinct civilizations. But this was different. This ship wasn't a ruin. It was alive, functional, and possibly still crewed by beings who had witnessed Earth's final days. The docking process took longer than expected. The Endurance's bay was designed for ships much larger than the Harmony. Ancient mechanical arms guided them to a berthing platform that could have held 20 vessels their size. The scale of everything suggested this ship had been built for purposes far beyond simple exploration. "Atmosphere in the docking bay reads as standard," reported Lieutenant Banks from his sensor station. "Gravity is slightly higher than Earth normal, but within human tolerance ranges." Jake suited up alongside Elena and the rest of the boarding team. The other members included Dr. Voss, a crystalline physicist, Commander Keller from ship security, and 2 Marine escorts. All of them carried translation devices, though Jake suspected his knowledge of old Earth languages might prove more useful. The airlock cycled with mechanical precision. When the doors opened, they stepped into a space that defied belief. The docking bay was enormous, its ceiling lost in shadows high above. Dozens of smaller craft sat in orderly rows, their designs matching no known specifications. Some looked like fighters, others resembled transport vessels, but all bore the distinctive angular architecture of human engineering. "The air is clean," Elena reported. removing her helmet after confirming the readings. Temperature is comfortable. Whatever life support systems this ship uses, they're still working perfectly. They move deeper into the bay, their footsteps echoing in the vast space. Emergency lighting cast long shadows between the parked vessels. Everything looked ready for immediate use, as if the crews had just stepped away for a moment and might return at any time. A soft chime sounded from hidden speakers. Then a voice spoke in clear, unaccented English. "Welcome aboard the UES Endurance. Please proceed to Decontamination Station 7 for processing." Jake froze. The voice was definitely human, female, and speaking as if 20,000 years hadn't passed since humans had walked these corridors. Elena grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with excitement and fear. "That was a human voice," she whispered. "There are still humans alive on this ship." They followed the lighted path that appeared on the deck, leading them toward a section of the bay marked with symbols Jake recognized as ancient Earth script. The decontamination station was a chamber large enough for their entire team, equipped with scanners and devices that hummed with barely contained energy. "Please remain still while biological scans are completed," the voice continued. Lights played over their bodies, and Jake felt a strange tingling sensation as unknown sensors examined him from head to toe. "Genetic markers confirmed for one human subject," the voice announced. "Jake Morrison, descendant of Alex Morrison, recorded in the memory banks. Welcome home." The words hit Jake like a physical blow. This ship knew his family name. Someone aboard had records going back to Earth itself, to ancestors he had never known existed. The inner doors opened, revealing a corridor that stretched beyond sight. The walls were lined with what looked like viewing ports, but instead of showing space outside, they displayed images of Earth as it had been in humanity's golden age. Cities gleaming under blue skies, forests stretching to distant horizons, oceans reflecting clouds that would never be seen again. "The ship's layout doesn't match the external dimensions," Dr. Voss observed, his crystalline form refracting the corridor lighting into rainbow patterns. "The internal space is significantly larger than should be possible." Elena nodded, making notes on her portable recorder. "Either the hull is much thicker than it appears, or this ship uses spatial compression technology beyond anything in our databases." They walked for what felt like kilometers before reaching their first destination. The corridor ended at a vast chamber filled with towering structures that reached toward a ceiling lost in darkness. Each structure was covered in small windows, thousands upon thousands of them, all glowing with soft blue light. "What are those?" Commander Keller asked, his hand moving instinctively toward his weapon. Jake stepped closer to examine the nearest structure. Through the windows he could see chambers filled with some kind of fluid, and floating in that fluid, perfectly preserved, were human bodies. "Suspension pods," he breathed. "This entire chamber is filled with humans in suspended animation." The scale became clear as they moved through the chamber. There weren't just thousands of pods. There were millions. The structures rose like skyscrapers, each one containing enough sleeping humans to populate a small planet. Some pods showed signs of recent use, their occupants recently awakened. Others looked like they had been sealed for millennia. "The life signs we detected," Elena whispered. "They weren't crew members moving around the ship. They were all these people in suspension." A new voice spoke from the shadows between the towering structures. This one was male, older, and carried the weight of unimaginable experience. "Not people," the voice corrected gently. "Souls. This ship carries the preserved consciousness of everyone who died defending Earth in our final war." A figure stepped into the light. He was human, dressed in a uniform that Jake recognized from historical records as belonging to Earth's space fleet. The man looked to be in his 50s, but his eyes held the depth of someone who had lived far longer than any human should. "I am Captain Ryan Blake, commanding officer of the UES Endurance. I died 18,000 years ago defending the colony at Alpha Centauri. This is the 4th time I've been revived to guide our people to safety." Elena's recording device fell from nerveless fingers. The implications of what they were seeing rewrote everything the galaxy thought it knew about life, death, and the true fate of humanity. "Welcome aboard humanity's Ark of Souls," Captain Blake continued. "We've been waiting a long time for the right moment to come home." Captain Blake led them through corridors that seemed to bend and twist in ways that hurt to think about. Jake found himself walking beside a man who had died before his great-great-grandfather was even born. Yet here he was, solid and real, and very much alive. The impossibility of it made his head spin. The ship doesn't follow normal space, Blake explained as they passed through a doorway that opened onto a chamber filled with swirling lights. When you carry 10 million human minds, you need room for them to exist. We've learned to fold space inside itself, creating areas where consciousness can expand and grow. Elena stumbled as they entered what looked like a vast library, its shelves stretching impossibly high and filled with books that seemed to write themselves as she watched. "This violates every law of physics I know," she whispered. "Physics is just the rules we've discovered so far," Blake replied with a sad smile. "When your entire species faces extinction, you learn to break a lot of rules very quickly." They passed through rooms filled with gardens where earth plants grew under artificial suns, workshops where machines built new technologies from pure thought, and chambers where sleeping humans floated in pods that kept their bodies young while their minds dreamed of better worlds. "How many people are on this ship?" Dr. Voss asked, his crystalline body reflecting the strange lights that danced through the corridors. "Define people," Blake answered. "We have about 50,000 active crew members at any given time, but we carry the preserved consciousness of every human who died in Earth's final war. Soldiers, scientists, children, artists, teachers, farmers. Everyone who wanted to continue fighting for humanity's future." Jake stopped walking. "You're talking about resurrection, bringing the dead back to life." Blake nodded. "When Earth was dying, our greatest scientists made a breakthrough. They learned how to capture human consciousness at the moment of death, storing it in quantum matrices that could survive indefinitely. The body dies, but the mind, the soul, the essence of who we are, that continues." They entered a medical bay where dozens of pods lined the walls. Some were empty, their transparent covers open and waiting. Others contained humans in various stages of revival, their bodies growing from basic cellular templates guided by the stored patterns of their original forms. "The process takes about a week," Blake explained. "We grow a new body from the person's original genetic code, then download their consciousness into the fresh neural pathways. They wake up exactly as they were at the moment of death, with all their memories and personality intact." Elena watched, in fascination, as medical robots tended to a pod where a woman's body was taking shape. "But this is impossible. The energy requirements alone would drain a star." "That's why we need special worlds," Blake said. "Planets with the right quantum resonance, proper stellar radiation, specific mineral compositions. The revival process only works under very precise conditions." Jake studied the woman in the pod. She looked young, maybe 30, with dark hair and features that reminded him of the old Earth photographs he'd seen in museums. "Who is she?" "Dr. Lisa Chang, one of our best quantum physicists. She died defending the research station at Europa. This will be her 6th revival. Each time we wake her, she helps us improve the process, makes it more efficient, more reliable." Commander Keller had been silent during most of the tour, but now he spoke up. "If you can bring people back from the dead, why haven't you shared this technology with the galaxy? Think of all the lives that could be saved." Blake's expression darkened. "Because the galaxy isn't ready. We learned that lesson the hard way. The first time we revealed ourselves after Earth's fall, we tried to help a dying world. We brought back their greatest leaders, their most brilliant scientists. Do you know what happened?" The group waited in silence. "War," Blake continued. "The living became jealous of the dead who could return. Families fought over who deserved revival. Governments tried to hoard the technology for themselves. Within a generation, the entire world tore itself apart. We swore we would never make that mistake again." They reached the ship's core, a chamber so vast that Jake couldn't see the far walls. In the center, a massive structure pulsed with energy that felt alive, aware, watching. Streams of light flowed between millions of connection points, each one representing a stored human consciousness. "This is where we keep them," Blake said softly. 10 million souls waiting for their chance to live again. Scientists who could cure diseases that plague the galaxy. Artists who could create beauty beyond imagination. Leaders who could guide civilizations to golden ages. All of them ready to help, if the galaxy proves it deserves such gifts. Dr. Chang's revival pod chimed softly. The lid opened with a whisper of escaping gases, and the woman inside took her first breath in over a century. Her eyes opened, clear and intelligent, scanning the faces around her pod. "Ryan," she said, her voice slightly hoarse from the revival process. "How long this time?" "130 years, Blake replied. "We found another suitable world. Kepler 438. The conditions are perfect for a full revival cycle." Chang sat up slowly, her new body responding with the practiced ease of someone who had done this many times before. She looked at Jake with obvious interest. "A living human. How wonderful. What's your name, child?" "Jake Morrison," he replied, still struggling to accept what he was witnessing. Chang's eyes widened. "Morrison. Alex Morrison's line. He stayed behind to help coordinate the final evacuations. A good man. A brave man." She smiled. "It's good to see his family survived." "Survived where?" Elena asked. "If Earth was destroyed, how did Jake's ancestors escape?" Blake and Chang exchanged a meaningful look. "Earth wasn't destroyed," Blake said carefully. "It was taken. The harvesters came for our world, but some humans escaped before the planet fell. They scattered across the galaxy, hiding among other species, keeping the human genetic line alive in secret." Jake felt the world spinning around him. "You mean there are other humans out there, living normal lives?" "More than you might think," Chang replied as she stood and tested her new legs. "The galaxy is full of humans who don't even know they're human. Adopted children raised by alien families. Descendants of refugees who forgot their origins. Entire colonies that think they evolved naturally on distant worlds." She walked to a viewing port that showed the strange, swirling lights of the ship's folded space. "We've been seeding the galaxy with humanity for 20,000 years. Not just through revival, but through hope. Every world we visit, we leave behind the tools and knowledge they need to build better lives." Blake joined her at the viewing port. "The Endurance isn't just a ship. It's a mobile civilization. We carry the best of what humanity was and plant it wherever we find fertile ground. Art, science, philosophy, dreams of a better future." Elena was frantically making notes, trying to record everything she was learning. "But why reveal yourselves now? What's changed?" Chang turned back to face them, her expression serious. "Because the harvesters have found us again. And this time we're not running." The alarm that echoed through the Endurance 3 hours later was unlike anything Jake had ever heard. It wasn't the sharp beeping of a normal ship's warning system. This sound was deep and mournful, like the cry of a dying whale. Every human on the ship seemed to feel it in their bones. "Harvester signatures detected," came the announcement over the ship's communication system. "All crew to battle stations. Revival Protocol 7 is now active." Dr. Chang moved with sudden urgency, her casual demeanor replaced by the focused intensity of a soldier preparing for war. "Jake, you and your team need to get to the safe zones immediately. What's about to happen isn't meant for civilians to witness." Captain Blake was already gone, having disappeared the moment the alarm sounded. Around them, the ship's corridors filled with humans moving with practiced efficiency. Some wore uniforms that Jake recognized from old Earth military records. Others dressed in simple work clothes or laboratory coats. All of them moved like they had done this dance many times before. "What are the harvesters?" Elena asked as Chang led them through passages that seemed to shift and change around them. The ship was transforming, walls sliding away to reveal weapon systems and armor plating that gleamed with impossible sharpness. "Death," Chang replied simply. "They're machines, but not like any artificial intelligence you've encountered. They were created by a species that died out millions of years ago. Their purpose was simple: find all intelligent life in the galaxy and destroy it." They passed a viewing port where Jake caught sight of something that made his blood freeze. Dark shapes moved through space beyond the ship, each one larger than a space station. Their surfaces absorbed light instead of reflecting it, making them appear as holes cut in the fabric of reality itself. "They found Earth 20,000 years ago," Chang continued as they hurried deeper into the ship. "Consumed every living thing on the planet in less than a week. The only reason any humans survived was because we had ships like this one already in deep space." Elena stumbled as the ship shuddered around them. But why do they want to destroy all life? What's the purpose? We think they're trying to prevent something, Chang said. Their creators may have foreseen some cosmic threat that only intelligent life could create. Or maybe they just went insane after millions of years alone in the void. The reason doesn't matter anymore. All that matters is stopping them. They reached what Chang called a safe zone, a chamber deep in the ship's core where the walls pulsed with energy that felt warm and protective. Other members of the research team were already there, along with dozens of confused alien scientists who had been working aboard the ship when the alarm sounded. The Endurance has been fighting the Harvesters for 20,000 years, Chang explained as she sealed the chamber door. Every time they find us, we fight. Every time we fight, some of us die. And every time some of us die, we learn something new about how to kill them. Through the chamber's viewing screens, they could see the battle beginning outside. The Endurance had transformed from a simple colony ship into something that belonged in the nightmares of enemy fleets. Weapons emerged from hidden compartments, each one crackling with energy that made space itself ripple and bend. How can one ship fight those monsters? Dr. Voss asked, his crystalline form refracting the light from the screens into nervous patterns. Chang smiled grimly. Because this isn't one ship anymore, watch. The Endurance split apart before their eyes. What they had thought was a single massive vessel revealed itself to be dozens of smaller ships, each one designed for a specific purpose. Some were pure weapons platforms, bristling with guns that fired bolts of concentrated starlight. Others were defensive screens that projected barriers of hardened space-time around the fleet. Each section can operate independently, Chang explained. We learned that lesson from our early battles. The Harvesters expect their enemies to fight like normal civilizations, with predictable tactics and limited thinking. They don't expect their prey to remake the rules of combat entirely. Jake watched in amazement as human ships danced between the Harvester vessels with impossible grace. They moved like they were alive, responding to threats before weapons could even be fired. Some ships seemed to vanish entirely, only to reappear behind enemy lines with their guns already blazing. The ships are controlled by revived consciousness, Chang said, noticing his confusion. Each vessel carries the minds of our greatest pilots and tacticians. People who died in previous battles and came back to fight again. They know every trick the Harvesters have because they've faced them before. The battle raged for hours. Jake saw things that challenged everything he thought he knew about space combat. Human ships that folded themselves through dimensions to avoid enemy fire. Weapons that reached backward through time to destroy targets before they could defend themselves. Harvester machines that rebuilt themselves from pure energy after being completely destroyed. We're not trying to win, Chang said quietly, as they watched a human ship sacrifice itself to save two others. We can't win. There are too many of them, and they've been growing stronger for millions of years. All we can do is survive long enough to plant more seeds. Elena looked up from her notes. Seeds? Humanity, Chang replied. Every world we save, every civilization we help, every person we inspire to be better than they were. Those are the seeds that will eventually grow into something the Harvesters can't destroy. The tide of battle began to turn as more human ships arrived from hidden positions throughout the system. These weren't part of the Endurance's fleet. They were independent vessels, each one carrying refugees from worlds the Harvesters had already consumed. The galaxy is full of human ships, Chang said with obvious pride. Ships like ours carrying the saved consciousness of destroyed civilizations. We're not the only ark. We're just the oldest and the largest. Jake pressed his face against the viewing screen as the Harvester fleet began to retreat. The dark ships were pulling back, but not because they were defeated. They were regrouping, calling for reinforcements, preparing for a longer campaign. This was just the first wave, Chang said. They've found us again, which means they'll keep coming until either we're dead or they are. But that's fine. We've been ready for this fight for 20,000 years. The chamber's communication system crackled to life. Captain Blake's voice filled the room, calm and steady despite the chaos of battle outside. All civilians prepare for emergency jump, he announced. We're taking the fight to them this time. The running phase of this war is over. Chang moved to a control panel and began entering commands. Jake, I want you to understand something. Your ancestors didn't just survive Earth's destruction. They helped plan it. The Harvesters think they won our homeworld, but they were wrong. Earth was never our real home. Our home is wherever humans choose to make it. The ship shuddered as the jump drives engaged. Through the viewing screens, Jake could see space itself beginning to twist and fold around them. Where are we going? Elena asked. Chang's smile was fierce and full of anticipation. To every world where humans have built new lives. It's time to stop hiding and start fighting back. The jump through folded space lasted 3 days. When the Endurance finally emerged into normal reality, Jake found himself staring at a sight that rewrote everything he thought he knew about the galaxy. Hundreds of human ships filled the space around them, each one different in design but united in purpose. Some were massive, like the Endurance. Others were sleek fighters that danced between the larger vessels like schools of fish. "Welcome to the real human fleet," Dr. Chang said as she joined him at the observation deck. "Ships from every world we've seeded, every colony we've helped establish, every civilization we've saved from extinction." The ships came from worlds Jake had never heard of. The garden worlds of the Centauri system, where humans had learned to grow cities from living trees. The ice mining stations of Wolf 359, where human engineers had taught frozen worlds to sing. The trading posts scattered throughout the Orion Arm, where human merchants had connected dozens of species in webs of friendship and commerce. "How many humans are really out there?" Jake asked, watching as more ships continued to arrive through jump points throughout the system. "About 2 billion spread across 300 worlds," Chang replied. "Most of them don't even know they're part of a larger plan. They live normal lives, raise families, build civilizations, but when the call comes they remember who they are and where they came from." Elena approached them with her recording device, her eyes bright with the excitement of discovery. "The genetic markers we've been finding on abandoned worlds? Those weren't ruins of an extinct species. They were breadcrumbs," Chang nodded. "Every world we visited, we left traces behind. Art that would inspire future visitors to think beyond their limitations. Technology that would help struggling civilizations take their next evolutionary steps. Stories that would plant seeds of hope in minds that had given up on tomorrow." The communication system activated with Captain Blake's voice. "All ships prepare for synchronized jump to Harvester Prime. Today we end this war." Jake felt his heart stop. "Harvester Prime?" "Their home base," Chang explained. "A machine world they built from the corpses of 1,000 civilizations. It's where they coordinate their attacks across the galaxy. For 20,000 years it's been too well defended for us to approach, but not anymore." The viewing screens showed the true scale of the human fleet. Not hundreds of ships, but thousands. Vessels that had been hiding in asteroid fields, gas giant atmospheres, and the dark spaces between stars. Each one carried humans who had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. "The harvesters made one critical mistake," Chang continued as the fleet began forming into attack formations. "They assumed that destroying a species meant ending their threat. They never considered that death might just be the beginning of something stronger." Jake watched in amazement as the fleet organized itself with precision that would have impressed any military commander. But this wasn't a traditional navy. These were ordinary people who had become something extraordinary through necessity and determination. The jump to Harvester Prime took the entire fleet through regions of space that had been considered impossible to navigate. Dark matter storms that could tear apart normal ships, gravity wells so intense they bent light into knots, quantum barriers that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. "How are we getting through this?" Dr. Voss asked, his crystalline form flickering with nervous energy. 20,000 years of practice," Chang replied. "We've been mapping these routes since the day Earth fell. Every battle, every retreat, every desperate escape has taught us something new about how to move through spaces that weren't meant for living beings." When they finally emerged near Harvester Prime, Jake understood why no one had ever successfully attacked this place. The machine world was larger than most moons, its surface covered with weapons that could sterilize entire solar systems. Harvester ships swarmed around it like antibodies protecting a vital organ. "They're calling in reinforcements from across the galaxy," reported the tactical officer. "We'll be outnumbered 1,000 to 1 within hours." Captain Blake appeared on the bridge, his expression calm despite the impossible odds they faced. "Numbers don't matter anymore. We're not here to fight them ship to ship. We're here to do something they've never experienced before." The human fleet spread out in a formation that looked random, but felt purposeful. Each ship took position at specific coordinates, as if they were pieces of a vast machine preparing to activate. "Jake," Chang said suddenly, "we need you to come with us to the command center. There's something you need to understand about why you're really here." They made their way through corridors filled with humans preparing for what everyone knew might be their final battle. But instead of fear, Jake saw determination. These people had died before and come back. Death held no terror for them anymore. The command center was a vast chamber where the consciousness of every human who had ever fought the Harvesters could manifest and communicate. Jake found himself surrounded by the ghosts of heroes, each one adding their knowledge and experience to the collective effort. The Harvesters aren't just machines, explained a woman who had died defending Mars 3,000 years ago. They're powered by the absorbed consciousness of every species they've destroyed. They use the minds of the dead to fuel their war against the living. Jake felt sick. You mean everyone they've killed is trapped inside those ships? Not trapped, corrected a man who had been Earth's greatest philosopher. Enslaved, forced to watch as their own thoughts are used to destroy other worlds. But consciousness can't be truly destroyed, only redirected. Captain Blake stepped forward. That's why we needed you here, Jake. You're the living connection between all the scattered pieces of humanity. Through you, we can reach every human consciousness in the galaxy, even the ones the Harvesters think they control. The battle began as Jake placed his hands on the consciousness interface. Through his connection to his scattered people, he could feel the network of human minds that spanned the galaxy. Colonists who had forgotten their origins, adopted children raised by alien families, even the enslaved consciousness trapped within the Harvester machines. Now, Blake commanded. Every human in the galaxy spoke the same words at the same moment. Not aloud, but in the quantum frequencies that consciousness used to communicate across impossible distances. The message was simple, but it carried the weight of 20,000 years of stubborn human refusal to surrender. We choose hope. The effect was immediate and devastating. Harvester ships throughout the galaxy simply stopped fighting, as the enslaved minds within them remembered what it meant to be free. For the first time in millions of years, the machines experienced something they had no programming to handle: doubt. In that moment of hesitation, the human fleet struck. Not with weapons, but with something far more powerful. They offered the Harvesters a choice: continue the endless cycle of destruction, or join the growing community of species that had learned to work together instead of fighting. The war ended not with explosions, but with understanding. The Harvesters, faced with an enemy that refused to hate them even after 20,000 years of conflict, chose to lay down their weapons and ask a question they had never thought to ask before: what comes after the fighting stops? Jake stood on the observation deck of the Endurance 6 months later, watching as human and Harvester engineers worked together to build something that had never existed before. A ship designed not for war or conquest, but for exploration and discovery. Where will you go now? Elena asked. She had remained aboard the ship to document everything that had happened. Jake smiled as he watched his people working alongside their former enemies. Everywhere, there are still worlds that need hope, species that need help, and stories that need to be told. The galaxy is full of wonders we haven't discovered yet. Chang joined them, her latest body showing the results of her work with Harvester consciousness transfer technology. The running is over. The hiding is finished. Humanity is finally home. Home? Jake asked. Chang gestured toward the viewport, where ships from hundreds of different worlds worked together under the light of ancient stars. This all of it? The entire galaxy? That was always the plan from the moment we left Earth behind. Not to find a new home, but to make the whole universe into one.